Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host Holly Wharton. Ready to Bloom helps heart-centered women entrepreneurs to overcome their fears, blocks and limiting beliefs so they can be more successful in business. As a heart-centered business owner, you do amazing work. Holly's mission in life is to help you help more people. Help us help more women in business with a quick review of this podcast. It just takes a minute to leave one today over at iTunes. The more women who find out about this podcast, the more we can help women in business. Thank you.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 90. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's very special guest, Denise Duffield-Thomas from Lucky Bitch. Denise is the money mindset mentor for the new wave of online female entrepreneurs. Her best-selling books, Lucky Bitch and Get Rich Lucky Bitch, give a fresh and funny roadmap to create an outrageously successful life and business. Denise helps women release their fear of money, set premium prices for their services, and take back control over their finances. So excited to have you here today. Welcome, Denise.
I'm excited too, Holly. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, I love it. So great. So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today? Because I feel like you are the go-to woman in the online business world for dealing with money stuff. So how did this all happen?
Well, I wasn't always good with money. And I was thinking about my earlier business ventures because I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur even before I really knew what that was. So even as a kid, I started businesses all of the time. And I said to someone recently, I didn't make any money out of them as a kid because it just didn't occur to me to ask for money for some of the businesses that I started because I was doing it for the pure joy of being in business. And also I didn't have any role models in my life of women who made their own money. So I remember my first business, I was selling bracelets around the neighborhood and I sold them for the exact cost of my raw materials. And I remember thinking I was going to sell horse poop because we had a horse. So I collected it all and then I never followed through with selling it. And then I was going to do a garage sale and I made all my friends give us all their old stuff and then it just sat in our shed for a long time. So I definitely had some problems with follow through as a kid. But I honestly think that your money blocks and the way you think about money is formed very early on in our lives. And my businesses in my 20s were no different, really. I was doing things for the pure joy of creating. So my very first kind of venture in my 20s was an ebook about internet dating for men. I know, random, right? And I was going to be a dating coach. And, I tried a lot of different things and I didn't know how to monetize them, for one. But again, I just didn't have any role models of how women could really harness their power in business and use business as a vehicle for creating wealth, but creating freedom as well. So I honestly have to say, it wasn't until I kind of hit 30 and I started looking at personal development from a money point of view, rather than just like, I am rich, I am wealthy, all that kind of affirmation stuff that you learn in personal development. I just went, there must be something here because I'm smart, I'm ambitious, I'm talented, not blowing smoke up my own butt. But a lot of women, we know that it's not just a matter of working harder. We want it, but there's something that's holding us back. And so for once in my life, I just looked, okay, what are some of the downsides of being wealthy? Why can't I make money from my talents? And I went on a journey of exploration. And then I started teaching my life coaching clients about it. And trust me, I resisted talking about money for a long time publicly because I didn't want to be the money girl. And so it's ironic that you said that I am known as a money girl now because I was like, universe, I hear your calling and I reject it. So that's my journey. I'm in my mid-30s now and I really think that I'm just hitting my stride really now because I'm just so centered in knowing that it's not about money. I really do. It's just not about money at all. But you have to go through that journey of thinking that it's about money and dealing with your money stuff before you get to the other side and you realize that life can be much simpler and money is not the destination. It's just the part of the journey.
Yeah. And so what was the big shift for you? Because you said that you did not want to be the money girl and the universe was giving you all these signs that yes, that was your path. What was the shift where you finally said, okay, I'm just going to embrace this and this is going to be my thing?
I think it came from hearing from my clients and seeing some of their results, and that made me feel really good. And it made me realize that I didn't have to be the expert and that there's room for a lot of different voices in the conversation. So it doesn't matter what topic you're talking about. It's okay just to be one of the voices. You don't have to give yourself the pressure that you have to be the Oprah of whatever your industry is. Once I did that, I just went, oh, I can just do it the way I want to do it. And people who need to hear my message will hear it from me, and that's okay.
Exactly. And you don't have to be perfect.
No, exactly. And I'm still not perfect. I work on my money blocks all of the time, which surprised me at first because I thought, well, money solves all your problems. And it really doesn't. And I thought having money solved your money blocks, and it doesn't either. They kind of go along on the journey with you, and having them doesn't mean you're not meant to be successful.
And so how often would you say that you kind of go through another round of working on your money blocks?
Oh, good question. I would say daily in a very casual way. It's not like I sit down and I really go through stuff, but I think I'm in the conversation every day with my clients, with the people in my money boot camp, with my own mastermind buddies. I'm in this exploration every single day because my money blocks hit me in the face almost every day in some way. Sometimes it's really big and drastic. Other times it's just little stuff. And I think that's cool, right? Once you've kind of dealt with most of your stuff, you can just go on with your life being the person that you were striving to become for so long and kind of enjoy it, but still be in that conversation. And also you can see, I think, quicker when red flags come up. And for me, one of my recurring money blocks is that you have to work hard to make money. And so I face that resistance all the time. Every time I create a new product or write a new sales page or think about creating a new passive income stream or whatever, I resist it all of the time because that is one of my flavors of money blocks. But I make a lot of money now and it hit me when I had no money, and it hits me sometimes when I have a lot of money. So I think that's a really important thing for people to hear, that it's okay for you to have money blocks and it's okay for you to face resistance because it's entirely normal, and very successful people still work through that. Almost on a daily basis.
I think that's really, really important for people to hear, because I think a lot of people can look at you and look at your business and think, oh, wow, she's got it made. You know, she's done her stuff. Everything's perfect now. And of course it's not. You're still working on it because it's a work in progress.
Absolutely. And that doesn't mean you can't make money still with your money blocks, because I make a lot more money than I ever have in my life. And it's just interesting how money doesn't solve your problems. It's just a tool.
Yeah. So once you kind of embraced the fact that you were going to be the money girl and you started building your business around this, what kind of the biggest challenges that came up for you as you were building this business?
I think focus, because as women, quite often we try and be everything to everyone. And so I was trying to help everybody with everything. And so that was the biggest struggle for me. I think when I decided just to focus purely on money, it felt a little bit constricting, or it felt like I was going to rebel against it, because I was like, oh no, does that mean I have to just talk about money for the rest of my life? But what I realized was when you get pretty clear on what your topic is and who your target audience is. So for me, that's money and business. I do talk about marketing a bit as well, but really how it relates to finding more clients so you can make more money. And my audience is female entrepreneurs. So I've got those kind of two containers, but I can talk about anything within that. So that's why I love doing interviews like this, because I might talk about money mindset for female entrepreneurs, money mindset for mothers in business, money mindset for graphic designers in business. And I can kind of talk about whatever I like within those two things. I know my topic and I know my audience. And when you do that, you can get very, very focused. And that was a struggle for me, I think, at the beginning, having a very focused message, because people were still contacting me like, oh, Denise, remember that website you made for me, 3 years ago, which I'm not in the business of making websites. I was never in the business of making websites, but I'd made one for somebody because we had a barter thing. She was like, oh, you made your own website. Why don't you make me a website and I'll take photos for you? And I was like, that sounds like a great plan. But, a couple of years down the track, if you do everything for everyone, people are still going to contact you and go, can you do this? Can you do that? I think the hardest thing was saying no to things that were outside my zone of genius and things that were outside what I wanted to be known for. And that took a little bit of a hit on my ego at the start, because I liked being the go-to person for everything. And I liked knowing the answer. And I remember just saying to someone, oh, I don't know the answer to that. And it was like the hardest thing ever to type. And I did it not because I didn't know the answer or I wasn't prepared to go find it for them, which I used to do, was because I knew that I wanted to get really focused in what I was known for.
And I think you just brought up something that I was going to ask you anyway, so this is perfect timing. How was it that you went about finding exactly what your zone of genius is? Because I think that's a phrase that gets tossed around quite a bit, especially, people who have read
The Big Leap.
Yes, The Big Leap. I was going to say the Upper Limit book. So, but it can be really, really difficult for us to find exactly what our zone of genius is. So how did you go about doing that?
Well, I made a matrix and I kind of went, one box was things that I'm terrible at, like horrible, things that I'm okay at, things that I'm quite good at, and then things that I'm excellent at. And I kind of looked at everything in my business and kind of my life as well. And I plotted them in there. So I was like, I'm terrible at making slides. Like, I'm never going to make slides. I'm always going to resist it, PowerPoint slides. I'm terrible at doing laundry. And then I was like, I'm okay at cooking. I'm okay at helping people figure out tech problems. I'm okay at talking about some sort of marketing. And then I was like, this is the tricky one between excellent and genius, because you can make a good living in that zone of excellence and you can have a lot of satisfaction out of there. But things like public speaking and doing events, I was like, I'm kind of good at that, but is it my zone of genius? Is it something that I would do all day long? No, because it really tires me out and I need massive amounts of rest afterwards. So I was like, okay, well, that's a hard one, right? Because if people ask you to speak and you know that's something that you're kind of good at, it's really tempting to live in that place. And it's hard sometimes to say no. So I would say it's from trial and error. It's from just doing things and seeing how it feels and making it okay to make it a hard boundary. So a hard boundary for me is if people ask me to speak in my local town. And I just made that a boundary a long time ago and just went, I don't speak here. And someone recently asked me if I'd be a guest speaker on their paid mastermind. And again, that's a hard boundary for me. And that's just come from trial and error of realizing that's not my zone of genius and it's okay to say no. And sometimes it's really good to put a policy in place because then you can almost refer back to the policy as your excuse to say no.
Oh, that's an excellent tip.
Yeah.
and I love
policy.
Yeah, no, and I love how you mentioned that it's such a fine line between your zone of excellence and zone of genius, because I was just on Facebook, I think it was earlier today, looking at the photographs of your London event, and I was like, damn, she was such a good speaker. It was just so great. And as you say, you're great at it, but that's not your zone of genius because it does drain your energy. So I think that's such an important thing to focus on.
And it's okay to say no in that, just because people want you to do it, it's okay. And, I was thinking about it after I did it and I loved it and I have such a good time when I do it. But I was thinking I could not do this. I could not be the person who does a tour and speaks in different cities because it's just not, it doesn't light me up in a way that I think. But here's the thing, what we're doing now feels so much better to me doing a podcast interview than speaking on stage. Yeah. Because I'm in my house, I'm in my home office, I'm wearing cut-off shorts and no shoes and, it feels really good to me. So it's an easy yes for me to do that. But also it means from a practical point of view, you can start putting things in place in your business that ensure that you do more of what you love. So I've got an assistant who does a lot of interview pitches for me and I do about 5 interviews a week. And that's no accident, right? There's a process that we've put in place to ensure that happens. So I am working in my zone of genius.
Excellent. Yeah, that's all about kind of figuring that out and then planning to make more of the excellent stuff happen.
Yeah, but it is trial and error, I think. And you might not get it straight away, and that's cool.
Yeah, and I think it is a process. And I think business is a journey because, as you said, you've got to try things out, see what works, see what doesn't, and then just do more of what works for you.
Yep, exactly. See what feels good.
Yeah. So Denise, what would you say are your top tips on how people can start overcoming their money blocks?
Yeah, well, as I said before, the first thing is to acknowledge that just having money blocks doesn't mean anything. It just means that you are a human being in business and you're probably a woman in business, and we have money blocks. So that's totally cool. The other thing is to have someone in your life, whether it's a mastermind or a business buddy or a mentor, where you can talk through some of your money blocks, because I think sometimes just speaking them out loud really takes the power away from them. It really dissolves some of the charge that you get from your blocks by being self-aware, and just by admitting them out loud is really important. That's why I think with my money boot camp, I think at count today, there's like 1,300 people in there, women in there. And just by people going, oh my God, I've just had an aha about this thing that happened to me when I was a kid, and now I've made it into a whole big story, and this is how I'm living my business because of it. And that just dissolves so much just from being able to admit that. And then once you admit it once out loud, it's easier to recognize the pattern next time you do it. And it means that then you can stop things in its tracks before it goes down to maybe a sabotage situation or worse. And that's where I see women who have those feast or famine cycles, where they're going up. Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm having my best month ever. Oh my God, this is terrible. No one likes me. I have no money. You can see those coming a mile away when you speak aloud your money blocks and you know what they are. And then you don't have to go into the high highs and low lows, because you can kind of go, oh, it's just my money block. Oh, there's nothing wrong with me. It's okay. It's just my old money block talking. This is all good. And then one other thing I would say, this is an exercise I get people to do right at the beginning of the Money Boot Camp, is to look at your money memories and see what patterns are there. So it could be that you look at everything that you remember your parents talking about money, or any memories you have around school and money, or friends and money, and write them all down and see if there's any patterns there, because then you can see very clearly what some of those money blocks are. And when you are around women who are in that same conversation, you can see patterns from other people's patterns. When other people share their stories and their money blocks, it often sparks off ideas about your own stories around money.
I think that's so important, as you said, to share with other people, because I'm in the boot camp and love it. And I love when people share those stories about how they uncovered something that, they'd completely forgotten from childhood, because so often I will see that and I'll think, oh my God, I have something like that too. And maybe it's not exactly the same, but it's similar. And it's like it sparks that kind of memory in me, and it helps me uncover my stuff so that I can work on it.
Absolutely. And you start to recognize that it's all just story. Like, it's not really real. We're kind of just making up these stories around money and what it means. And once you kind of let that dissolve, you do realize that it's just a story and it has no power over you.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing, is to realize that they don't have any intrinsic power. The only power they have is the power that we give to them.
Yes.
And I think so often we can just kind of build that up in our minds and think, oh, my story, my story, my story. And it's just like snowballs into this monster that really doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So Denise, I've been meaning to ask you, was there a tipping point in your business when you were starting to build it and you started working through your money blocks and becoming aware of them, where things just kind of clicked and just went into flow?
I'm really glad you asked this question, because I was thinking about my journey, and I really think it's about creating your own tipping points and having a lot of little tipping points along the way. Often as women, we're almost waiting for the one thing, the one thing that's going to give us permission, or the one thing that's going to be our big break. And quite often it's a series of smaller self-directed tipping points that come along the way. And so for me, I increased my prices every 2 or 3 months at the start of my business. And each one of those times, I really experienced a bit of an upper limit for sure, because I was thinking, oh, no one's going to pay my new price. No one's going to pay my new price. But I felt compelled to really own my own value, because I started off very cheap, very, very cheap. And every time I increased my prices, I attracted more serious clients, or clients who are more aligned, I would say. Mm-hmm. And each one of those definitely took me to a new level, not only financially, but I think mentally and emotionally in my business. And I talk about how to do that. I've got a free pricing workshop at luckybitch.com/pricing about how you can, do that just the law of incremental upgrade is what we talk about in the boot camp, but just constantly upgrading your prices, but also what you offer your clients and refining so you do attract those clients that are more in your zone of genius. So I think that made the difference for me, increasing my prices every couple of months.
Yeah, I think often if people don't have to invest very much in something, whether it's, service or program, it's like they're not invested emotionally in it. And so they don't do the work that they need to do to get the results that they need because it was just kind of a cheap thing.
Oh, absolutely. And when you are cheap, you will get clients who are really kind of sometimes a bit random, not because you're cheap, but because you've almost set out this thing to the universe that you will be everything to everyone at a very, very low price. And when you do increase your prices, when you do become maybe premium or a bit more expensive than other people in your industry, you will attract people who really clearly see the value that you have to offer because they're thinking twice sometimes about the investment. And it also makes you have to be very, very clear on what you offer clients. So I think it becomes a way to really work within your zone of genius.
Yeah, it's a way of filtering out people that aren't your ideal clients.
Absolutely. And most, a lot of people aren't, and that's okay. It doesn't make them wrong. It just means that, you can attract people who are more of your perfect match, but then so can they. So can those clients. Just because you're not serving them doesn't mean they're not going to be served ever.
Exactly.
Sometimes you can free your clients up by letting them go and letting them. And I found this very, very clearly. Some of the clients that I let go as I went through my journey, I could see that their next coach was so much better for them than I was. Such a better fit. And that's freed them up. Whereas if I stayed kind of what I was doing, they might have stayed with me for a long time. And honestly, it wasn't the best thing for them.
Yeah, and I think that also comes from having the confidence that if you let people go, you're making space for the right clients for you to come in and trusting that they will come in.
Absolutely. Exactly.
So Denise, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business who inspire you?
I have so many women in business who inspire me. And actually, it's not so much women who are celebrities or anything like that. But there are women who are great stars in our industry. And one of those is Leonie Dawson, who is now a really good friend of mine. And I just see how normal she is. She's just such a, normal person who is constantly working on herself. And she has got such a big vision and mission for helping people that really, really drives her. And she inspires me daily. I speak to her pretty much every day on Facebook, and she's just a beautiful, shining example of what it is to be on mission and just want to help people. And she gets, very rewarded for it. She's a very wealthy woman.
Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, so do I.
Is there anyone else you'd like to mention? Just wanted to check.
Well, I love Oprah. I've always loved Oprah, and she's, in her 60s now, and she's just becoming more and more and more of herself and a leader. And I've been watching her since I was a kid. I remember running home from school to watch her because we got out at 3:20 and her show started at 3:30 and I'd missed the first 10 minutes of it. But she taught me just so much about the world. And I think now watching her, and I don't watch her religiously, but I love the behind the scenes shows that she put out, and just to see her being a leader in that space. And she's just so herself, and she started out such a people pleaser, and I see her just saying nope, and this is the way it is, and she just lives so on purpose. And I really hope I get to meet her one day. She's definitely been a role model my whole life.
Yeah, and I think she's such a fantastic role model. So a woman who's just made such a massive difference and who has such a kind of a huge personality. And as you said, is becoming more and more herself, less kind of mass market and more doing her thing as time goes on.
Yeah, and I read a quote about her money stuff recently because I was thinking I'd love to find out what her money blocks are. And she said, honestly, she's never really had a problem with asking for money, which I found really interesting. Even from her early days when she first started out as a news anchor, and she said she had no problem negotiating her salary or anything. And that really surprised me. But I think when she was starting to make money, her thing was that she had to give it all away. And because she had such a giant heart and she had people who would ask her for loans and ask her for money. And people, after her show, people used to be able to just come and talk to her all the time. Now she does a show and she kind of, shakes a few hands and goes. But she said that this lady came to her office and she said, I really need your help. And she was like, oh, okay, come back and we'll talk in my office. And the lady said, can you buy me a house? But she had people like that all the time just saying, buy me stuff and give me money because you've got it. So that's really interesting how she didn't have any problem making money, but for her money block was giving it away and being over generous. So I think it's fascinating learning about different flavors of money.
Yeah, exactly, because you can never guess what other people's money blocks are going to be.
No, exactly.
So, Denise, tell us a little bit about how other women in business can benefit from working with you, because you've got the boot camp and you've got a number of other things on offer.
Well, what I've noticed is for women in business, as I said at the start of the call, it's not about ambition, it's not about talent. And often it's not about strategy, because I know for myself, sometimes I've gone to conferences or I've tried working with a mentor because I think they have this silver bullet strategy that I've never heard of. And what I now know from working with very successful people is we've pretty much, the strategy is doing the same stuff over and over again in terms of business, right? You follow a marketing strategy and you be consistent and you do it. But what makes the difference is really working on your mindset and being in a space of being a student around what your own blend of sabotage is. And so that's what I specialize in, helping women really work on what their money sabotages are and helping them be in a conversation with other like-minded women where we do make money just a tool and it's a fun game that we can play and we can push each other to new heights around creating a first-class life. And for that, I mean, not necessarily, being the richest person that you know, but it's about creating your blend of your own life and just making the money to make that happen. So my Money Boot Camp is an evergreen program. You can join at any time. But I would recommend people come over and actually maybe start with my book. And that's at luckybitch.com/chapter. And you can get the first couple of chapters of my book for free and see if you like my flavor and see if you like what I have to say around money. Because I think it's a really valuable skill for us as women. I'm super passionate about the fact that entrepreneurial women are changing the planet through raising our abundance consciousness. And I really think we almost have a moral obligation to be successful in business and then have that ripple effect out to our communities and the rest of the world.
Yeah, and I think so many women that are in business have that focus of helping their communities, paying it back and helping people around the world through the money that they make in their business.
Absolutely. We are way more likely to be philanthropic as successful businesswomen. So, why not you? Why not you be successful and be wealthy if you want to be wealthy? And, my book is called Get Rich, Lucky Bitch. And it's kind of one of those things, rich means different things to everyone. But I do see when women have more money, we do spend it in different ways than men do. We hire other female entrepreneurs. We give money to charity. We outsource things in our life to other women. And we are really creating the ripple effect.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Excellent. So Denise, where can people find you online?
I am simply at luckybitch.com. And I love hearing from people on Twitter as well. I'm at Denise DT on Twitter and Instagram too. So let me know your stories. Let me know your ahas around money, because remember, this is just a conversation and you can be part of this huge global conversation of women around the world who are becoming wealthy and who are spreading that around the planet.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks, Holly. Love it too.
Excellent. Well, thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/90 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. If you enjoyed this episode, remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you.